This meeting of the Homebrew Website Club virtual edition apparently is now being broadcast. Oh, here we are. Structure. Take turns with the microphone, 1 to 2 minutes on. If this is your first time, introduce yourself, name, URL, and what you'd like to do next with your personal site. Something new you created on or for your website since the last time you attended. Questions about anything you're stuck on about your personal site. Notable indie web own your data related press and events.
Start and show us what you've got this morning.
Me or the guy on the train.
Is he still on the train or is he getting off?
I don't know. He froze. It's sort of hard to tell. But since the last meeting, I have updated the location code on my website, which I was working on. Admittedly, the one other attendee of this meeting who is not frozen in time has actually seen that. But
okay, you're since you're recording it for posterity.
Okay, let me see if I can posthumously screen share. Where's the button for that? Let's see here. Screen share. That should be it. Here. Sorry, the computer that I'm displaying on is actually a little far from the microphone. So this is my website, and I've chosen June 10th, 2015, because I know I was somewhere more interesting than I am right now. This is a trip that I took that I've updated the location data on to reflect that I was at the Western Wall. Now, if you look at the date, it actually says IDT. So one of the features I implemented is that if the location is in a different time zone, there's an option to overwrite the display, and it will actually show the time where the picture or post was made. And below is, of course, this lovely map.
Fancy. Which map?
Yes.
Which map version are you using? That's not the Google version, is it?
That is not the Google version. That's actually the OpenStreetMap version, but it is a one-click change if you would rather use a static Google map.
And have you looked into Google Maps, if you encode them properly or embed them properly, will do automatic zoom in, zoom out with.
Yeah, those are dynamic maps. These are deliberate. Yeah.
Okay, so that's a whole other map API.
Yes, but I'm not against it. It's just what I wanted to do is start with static maps because my hope was to basically cache the map locally.
Yeah.
Because it's not going to change that often.
Yeah. No, mostly I ask because I've been embedding maps manually, and I have been looking this week in an effort to switch over to this on my live site for either throwing the flag to not display the map and keep the location private and leave the embedded Google Maps on prior check-ins and locations the way they are, so that I don't have them duplicated, versus moving forward with something like this and or something that could be swapped out in the future. So
Yeah, I tried for the longest time to resist having to get an API key,
yeah,
but apparently everything requires an API key.
yeah. Well, you know, that's because they don't want you serving up millions of images.
So since this is static, at some point I may just sideload the location and serve it locally.
Yeah, it's very pretty.
Yeah, I picked this one because it's much more scenic. I do have some other posts that have more interesting locations than my normal ones. Let's see if I can find
Yeah.
another map. October 2014.
I'm trying to set up Noter Alive to take some
That's
notes.
a an image from the Giants Causeway. If you want some free advice about vacation, try not to take a vacation when there's a hurricane.
Oh yeah, that's a good thing.
That is the date that Hurricane Gonzalo hit that area.
Yeah.
That was a rare break in the clouds. So guess that covers me. Mine. I do have some stuff I plan on doing in the future. That would include enhancing this, but I have moved on. I like to evenly distribute after a big project. I like to do a bunch of little projects and then plan out which of my long-term goals is my next big project.
Yeah.
So this one took entirely too long. So my
Well,
hope is to do a few smaller things, do some minor updates, and then move on to what it is I want to try next.
yeah. All right.
And since we lost Kevin and his train trip, I'm going to take the hat off. That actually is my conductor's cap from when I operated trolleys. That's my actual number. Ah, the good old days. But do you have anything that you'd like to present?
Yeah, let me see if I can turn on the. Where's my
It's the green icon.
screen? I can do that. Let's see. This was about, I don't know, maybe 2 weeks ago. So I haven't really shown it off since I started. Um, I added, and I wrote this up just after I did it, but I added a plugin called Press Forward that I've been using as a was built originally as a journalism tool or a site aggregation tool for people kind of watching specific areas or topics so that you can aggregate from RSS feeds and then publish the interesting stuff. But I've been using it as an off-label use case to replace things like Pocket or Instapaper and some of those bookmarking services or read later services. So let's say, maybe since we have
Oh, you
your
read that
website
guy's site.
here.
He doesn't have anything interesting to say.
Now so you have this post. So let's say I wanted to read this later. I've created a bookmarklet um, that I can click nominate and send it to my website, and it'll automatically open up a page It literally scrapes, let me blow it up, it'll take the title and it scrapes all the data of what was in the post. If there's a featured image, it'll suck it in and save it as a featured image. You can put in the name of the person who wrote it. In this case, it was David Chansky.
Oh, does this mean you're going to reply to it now?
Well, no. So what I'm doing is I'm bookmarking it as essentially as something I want to read later. So I'm gonna click nominate, which is essentially their version of. I consider it kind of a private bookmark. So it'll save it to my database on the back end so that only I can see it when I'm logged in, or other users who I give access to can see it. So I'll save it and nominate it. I can send it directly and make it a draft if I read it. I'll show you that on the inside version. Saving it. Oh, it's thinking for a second. So it saved it as a bookmark essentially. And if I go in now and look at my nominated items, so it gives me kind of all content nominated items, which are kind of bookmarked to read. And then there's some setups on the side over here for adding RSS feeds. We're looking at all the things you're subscribed to, and then some preferences and other setup stuff. Why my computer's so slow today? So this is all the things that I've bookmarked to read recently. And so David Chansky's article that I just bookmarked shows up here. It gives me a little preview. If I want to read it, I can actually click on the link and it'll open it up, and it scrapes it with what used to be the Readability API. And Readability got shut down a while back and got turned into, I think Postlight took it over, and it's now called Mercury. But it literally scrapes all the cruft off the rest of the page and just gives you, the featured photos and the content. So it's literally a nice, crisp, easy to read thing. Over here on the side, there's a field if I want to add some notes. I can do that and then submit my response and save it. But once I've read it and I want to mark it on my site as read, I can immediately click this fast forward icon, which will save this as a draft within the site. It's also got the ability, and because I've actually read it, it's ticked the markup here to mark it as read. So there's a flag to indicate that I've read this. And now if I go to drafts, I can see this particular draft and edit it. So again, it's got the title, the entire content of the post. If you want to clean it up or make any notes, apparently it's double crediting you as the source.
I hope so. I am the source.
Since you are the source. So
not,
I can
not that it was the greatest article in the universe, but
I can dump this into David Chansky's wonderful and beautiful post kinds. Retrieve any metadata to post about it and look at the citation. So I have a summary, the site it came from, featured image, the author's name obviously is URL and his photo. I can mark it as read over here in the post kinds interface. And I'll mark it maybe as a link in WordPress's internal setup. And then because I want to give David credit, I'm posting it to my site so it'll show up here, But if I syndicate this out to Twitter or Facebook or other places, I don't necessarily want people to come to my site to read this as something I've read. You can come and see it, and some of the data will be there and it'll show up in some of the archive views. But if somebody clicks on this particular post, I want them to go to David's site to actually see his version there. So I can forward it here in this setup. I can save the draft, and then you can take a look at it. I won't actually post it and send all the setup. But essentially, this version of press forward allows me to very easily bookmark and save things I want to read for later very quickly. And I've got a workflow to do that even on my cell phone. It's quick and easy. It'll save it all in the background. And then with a couple more clicks, I've got an actual post with the red icon. I didn't put in some of the extra metadata. Usually I have it so it says red over here. But it's got that, and then it's got a copy of the full article that's archived. And I also set up some code so that it not only will, when I post it, it will save it to my site, but it will send the URLs for both my version of it on my site as well as all the linked URLs within the article to archive.org, so they're saved in the Wayback Machine as well. So I'm triple covered in terms of archival quality, since I've archived it both on my site as well as to archive.org if the original site is actually supporting and not blocking robots.txt. So,
well, redundancy is good.
It's uber redundancy, which is just super awesome. The other nice part too is this particular plugin also saves things within the metadata, so it will save the total word count of the article. It's saving the source of the article, or so if it was from the Atlantic, let's say, or the New York Times, I'd be able to have that piece of metadata as well as the original author's name, and I can add up and save and compile over time how many words I read this month, how many words I've read in the last 6 months or read in the last year. I can see a kind of an output of all the sources that I read regularly. So am I reading the New York Times more often than am I reading, the Huffington Post or something like that? But it saves a lot of kind of interesting metadata in the back end. In fact, I think we can scroll down and see some of it. So it'll tell me who archived it, if it's me or another user on my site. The date it was nominated, which it looks like it didn't put that in there for some reason. Keeps David as the original author. In fact, you'll notice too on the posted version, and I've got to fix the icon so that it's not me, but it shows the author here as David Shansky instead of showing me as the post author. I don't know. Item date. Some of these came from other sources. Trying to see what other kind of metadata is hiding in here.
Well, stay tuned. I may have something in this area for you.
So, I don't know. So, in my mind, the only thing this is missing, or that I'd like to see it add, is the ability to, have some web actions built into it, which I think would be kind of cool. So, we'll do that next.
You always need something to shoot for.
Yeah, well, this was a humongous, the fact that I found this and it's got all this stuff built in automatically, and there wasn't that much I tweaked. Mostly it was building bookmarklets and doing setup for mobile use and use away, because that's where I tend to I read Twitter on mobile more often than not while I'm, killing time in between things. And that's when I'll save the 50 things I want to read for later. Um, but
I'm
huge
similar
amount of
similar
functionality
in that
comes
regard.
in. So, and when I posted about it, I know there's probably a half a dozen other people who are now looking at it for the same kind of use case that I am. So, could be worse. Could be worse. So,
Well, I may have something in this area for you.
yeah.
I mentioned to you yesterday that Aaron Parecki's X-ray makes me want to improve my code in that area.
Yeah.
But we'll see. That's one of the things on my list.
Yeah, I've actually been thinking once he posted that, trying to figure out how to add to it or subsume it in some sort
Oh,
of
that's
work.
easy. You just wait until he improves it and you take advantage of
Well,
it.
yeah, you can do that too, but either that or work with him to improve it. Which is the
I gladly would, except he seems to be doing much better than I could all on his
yeah.
own.
Well, I think the difference too is he's been his 100 days of indie web are really creating a massive amount of output, like just the number of things he's improved.
And I think because some of these tools are built for low use, I know he told me at one point he's a little concerned if I used one of his services in a WordPress plugin that it might get more traffic than he could handle.
Oh yeah, that's possible too. Although I
So
don't know. Do you know how many people, or do we have any idea how many people really are using the IndieWeb plugin actively? I haven't looked at the
give me a
.org
second.
for it.
Well, remember, I get the background stats because I'm listed as a.
May have better data than I do. It's usually,
Yeah, I'm logging in just so I can
I
see.
mean, it's the .org page says there's 200 plus active installs.
Let's see here. Last week there were 9 downloads, all time 2,340 downloads. We had a gigantic spike in September. Oh, it's going to be August 30th. What the most that we ever had in one day was June 4th.
Wow.
That would have been right after the summit. June 4th, July 5th, and August 30th.
Those webcamp days.
Either that or there were days where we pushed updates.
Oh, that's possible too. Yeah.
But the last few updates that we've pushed have been minor ever since the 3.0 thing, which I know was a little controversial. At the moment, no update can be pushed until at least 2 people sign off on it.
That slowed things down significantly.
No, the only 2 people who regularly push things were
I was going to say
either
it's mostly you.
Matthias or myself.
Yeah.
So basically, what it was I know he objected to the identity stuff and thought
Yeah.
that should be separate, whereas the counter argument was then the plugin doesn't do anything, whereas now it does basic identity and it lets you install more stuff. And that was a massive change. So as a compromise to that in the future, if he does a commit, then it has to be reviewed by somebody else, and the same for me. So then we can't say, since it's unlike Web Mentions where it's his plugin, it's a community plugin.
Yeah.
So as a community plugin, what you end up with is that there have to be at least 2, the person who creates the code and the person and a second person who approves it are required in order to push any updates to that plugin in the GitHub repository. Although I may get back to it during my round of all the plugins because there's some new things that might be possible.
Yeah. Well, that was the other thing I thought of too, because I don't know, a month or 2 ago, I updated some stuff for wills and that kind of thing, and I was like, what happens if one or more of us dies in weird accidents or freakish something? And then, what do we do? How do we handle that?
Community wise, I assume that if I'm the one who's passed away, I'm beyond caring.
But well, that's the thing though, is I think most of us are, putting things on GitHub where it's open anyway. So it could always be forked and continued on from there.
Yeah, so the worst you're going to get are maybe the last couple of commits that didn't go up.
Yeah.
But if you've been looking, the last few things that were done that I'm going to iterate on, other than my continued issues with trying to get something merged with the micropub plugin.
Oh, so what was the last thing you did with because I think it's been probably almost about a week now since I looked at the last version in the repo for simple locations.
Oh, I've stabilized it to the point at which I have some other things I want to do.
Okay.
So I went in and started simplifying code in the PostKinds plugin. I committed a few of the changes, but I have a few that are not showing, including how the selector for the kinds is selected, how I need to reset the settings to accommodate the new 4.7 default options.
Yeah.
That are available, and a few other things like that.
No, because I was about to, probably in the next couple of days, I'll finish and push it up to my production server.
Yeah, and if you have
on a live site.
Yeah, if you have anything, there are already issues pending for the next round. For simple location, it's let's see, per post Zoom defaults, location lookup by address, RSS feed for location equipped posts, location weather, and Bing as a maps provider.
Yeah.
Are the 6 that are currently listed as ideas.
Well, I think it was just yesterday or the day before, I think I finally went in and made the changes to PostKinds so that I could do or start doing RSVPs for events from my site.
Yeah, the reason why I saw your mention of that, the
Yeah.
reason why I haven't is I want to see if I can tighten up the interface a bit.
Yeah.
Because I'm worried about having too much stuff in there.
Yeah. Well, that's a tough part too, is from a UI perspective, it's an awful lot of data, but in an incredibly compact amount of space. Although some of the basic fields you've got in there now, have 2 or 3 slashes on them. And
Yeah, the
I've been using it
compromise.
so long, I know what the output's going to look like, so I don't think twice about it.
That's why I want to go back, and I may do some other things. I may split it up into different areas.
Yeah.
In the simple location one, for example, I move the time zone override into the post box.
Yeah.
And I actually changed the behavior, which I'm not sure since I was the one who used it most. I'm not sure if anybody noticed that now the default behavior, if your post is from a location, a different time zone, the default is to show the time based on the other time zone, not the other way around.
And where is it getting that data from to know you're just based on the...
When you set the location, it sets the time zone for that location.
Yeah. Okay.
So it basically, after that, you would turn it off.
Okay. I know, and mostly I say that too because now that you've got location set up, it almost would seem like a relative no-brainer to kind of set up check-ins and make check-ins a usable.
Yeah, if you notice, that's not listed as a...
Yeah, it's not as a default. I've
No,
set
it's
it
not.
up and turned it on.
But it's not listed as a simple location
Yeah,
feature.
yeah,
It's listed as a post kinds feature
post
that's
kinds.
dependent on simple locations.
Yeah. Um, but I started setting it up because I want to start doing that, and particularly with things like own your check-in,
Yeah,
which I think,
you may want to wait until the second round of simple location improvements is the one that will add the venue stuff, which is currently blocked out.
yeah.
But
Well,
just
the venue stuff is nice to have it as extra metadata, but literally even having, the icon with the name of the place I'm at, and it saves the GPS coordinates, which will show a map. And
yeah,
then if I dump in a photo or something else like that, but own your check-in gives enough data and metadata to posse to, or I guess really you're posting both to your site and to Foursquare at the same time. Which I don't know if there should be even a separate name for that other than Posse or Pesos. It's closer to Posse, I guess, since technically you're sending it to your site first or even simultaneously. Um, but that's throwing enough metadata that with the name of the location and check-ins set up, it more or less it works out of the box. Um,
yeah. The only thing that I would want to do is know what data is sent from on your check-in, so that I can figure out where to intercept it and store it.
yeah. So and it's if I'm not mistaken, he forked it off of Own Your Gram that Aaron wrote. And I don't know that he's updated it because I think Aaron's made in the last week or two has made some changes, or over the holidays made some changes to Own Your Gram. But essentially,
Yeah,
he plugged in an API key to support Foursquare so that it does the Posse copy, and does a little back and forth. But more or less, he's sending, I think, a title, uh, maybe not even a title,
yeah. That's what I'd want to look in the code and
but
see what is he actually sending over.
it's sending a field for kind of a status update if you post in the Foursquare box of what it is you're doing at that location, and then it's sending a photo and the GPS coordinates, and I think kind of that's it. So, um, but it's not sending a huge amount of additional data. That the venue stuff is that kind of big or important. So, um,
Yeah, I just really want to see what the query looks like. Then I could sort of.
but I think it's literally it's a half a second away from having a complete closed loop. So
I may have a look. There are just some things with micropub that I've been meaning to do.
yeah.
There's some on the actual micropub side,
somebody
and
just came. Somebody just came in the back door. Give me a second. Let me go check.
okay. I'm
I'll
not
be
going
right.
anywhere. Well, since this is a recording, I might as well entertain people who are watching this recording. Hmm. How does one entertain? I have a ball. Ooh, I'm juggling ineffectively. A low camera. What else do I have on my desk? Hi. I wonder if I should end the recording because last time we did have a few more people presenting, but this time we didn't. And we didn't even get a group photo. That was always screen capture.
I'm back.
I was wondering how long we should have the recording on.
Yeah. Well, we can. I don't think anybody's going to join us later since we didn't catch. I don't think Baltimore is going on this week.
Yeah, they were very nice. Last week they were involved.
And I think McGuire joined us. He actually left Baltimore and then went home and joined us late as he was getting home.
Yeah.
So,
but I do have something that I will be adding to the MicroPub plugin if I can get it past Ryan.
Yeah.
I'm not used to his methodologies. I had a lot of the same issues with my style and Matthias, but either he's given up on fighting me or I've just figured out what he wanted. I have a little less experience with making Ryan happy.
That's always tough.
Well, I'm not sure if you noticed, there was a back and forth when I tried to implement WordPress coding standards, and we started arguing about whether or not you had to close a link. And personally, I don't care. I don't want to fight about that.
Yeah.
So I just basically closed the entire pull request, and I'll shelve the issue of coding standards and work on something that actually produces something.
Yeah.
I just figured that by doing that, it would, at the very least, be something that could be checked by everybody.
Yeah.
And I run that particular sniffer on everything, so people can't complain about my indenting deficiency.
Yeah.
But we'll see.
That's always, to me, it's a secondary thing. I think there's even been things in the past where I've done pull requests and people were so persnickety about their code and how it was set up. They literally cut and pasted all of my changes into their stuff set up by hand. And I was like,
I've done that occasionally when
I don't care so much.
Yeah, for me, I've done that when it just happened to be that I'd modified something and didn't feel like basically rebasing everything.
Yeah.
If
it's such a simple knucklehead change.
Yeah, it's just not worth that if I've already made the modifications.
Yeah.
But with that, I figured that those modifications would make extensive changes to the file, so it might as well be done first.
Yeah.
But I have to go back because some of the things that we were discussing in there, he agreed to. So, but I really started it with wanting to do draft. Now that Quill supports a draft option.
Yeah.
Maybe I'll try again, but I also want to get syndication targets working, which there's a filter for it, which means that I don't need to modify the code there. I need to modify the filter.
Oh, to take syndication from Quill?
No, to send syndication targets to Quill. So it's a planned upgrade for the Bridgey Publish plugin.
Oh, okay.
Where basically it would report Bridgey Publish as a syndication target. So you'd be able to click a button and Bridgey Publish would add the link to your site so that Bridgey Publish the site as opposed to the plugin would publish it for you.
Okay, that makes sense.
And if I could figure out a way to do that with more plugins, I would.
Yeah. That way you just use the pre-existing architecture to do it instead of building it all from scratch.
That's what I'm hoping for. I would try it with Snap, which I'm not happy with, but I'm still using. But
Yeah.
their data structure is just so confusing.
Oh yeah. And he keeps saying he's gonna push updates and there's gonna be a new version, but he's been saying that for a year or two. So
Yeah, well, it's just that the code is not easy to follow sometimes,
yeah.
and
Oh,
it's not that.
I meant to look over the holidays and I totally forgot, but I could have sworn you fixed the icon for Google Plus
I thought
in
I did.
syndication links.
I don't
And for
think I
some
pushed
reason,
it to stable, but I think I fixed it because I think it was just a typo.
yeah. But I don't think it's in I'm running the stable on my production and I noticed it the other day. It wasn't in there. But I
Yeah,
also keep meaning to go into Snap and take there's probably about 6 or 7 things that they will syndicate to um,
that aren't supported.
that either don't have icons or don't have or that won't go in and say Snap published this and put the thing in there automatically. Um, most of them are kind of smaller, lesser known silos, but there are a handful of bigger ones like LinkedIn, I think, doesn't do that.
Well, what I
Um,
probably will do, the icon set that's being used is automatic social icon set.
yeah.
Whereas
Well,
in Postkinds, I'm building my own, which is loosely based on genericons
yeah.
or generic
Let me go
cons
grab
anyway.
my battery for a second so my computer doesn't die.
Okay, well, I'll be here.
All right, we're back. Maybe.
But I checked. I remember fixing it, but maybe I forgot to commit it. Because the last commit that's listed is add support for Medium plugin per request Chris Aldrich.
Yeah.
Maybe it's in
Yeah, I
my.
know, and I think you did it way before that even, but I think it just didn't get pushed up, possibly.
Yeah, I'll check. As I said, I want to make the rounds and do some minor housekeeping on every plugin. I
Yeah.
feel every so often you should do a couple of fixes to make sure people know you're still alive.
Oh yeah. Or so that it says, it got updated recently and
Yeah,
5 years ago.
yeah. The last time I did anything for syndication links would have been back in LA in November.
Yeah.
So it's probably due, and there's some other stuff that I basically I want to go through every plugin. Even in Bridgie Publish, I have a pull request I have to work on.
Yeah.
I
Well, I've
asked
got a
somebody
list.
who had forked it to send me their code
Yeah.
PR, and I'd like to actually take advantage
Yeah.
because it adds a lot of nice features.
For which one?
Bridgie Publish.
Where'd you publish? Okay.
This one here.
Okay.
Add options for Bridgie backlink on per post basis.
Yeah.
It's a pretty
I think
extensive commit.
yeah, I'm trying to remember. Somebody has built a bunch of bookmarklets, I think. Maybe it's Scott Kingery down in San Diego, I think. I think I had seen a bunch of plugins he put together that essentially, you know, some of them duplicate Bridgie publish options or add the extra code into the body of the
I
particularly
just want to
the
clean this up to be a little nicer in the way that it works. The problem is there's not much I can do in terms of making the markup work differently because
yeah
the markup is parsed. Now, admittedly, I can put in some settings to override what your site is doing anyway. That's a
Yeah.
little more complicated. So no matter what I
Well,
do, somebody's going to be unhappy.
yeah. The other thing you could do too is have it set up so that with the checks or the check boxes, Bridgie Publish actually dumps the actual text into the post itself and then is editable for people who may want to go in and edit it. But there's only so many options that are even available, I think.
What I'm going to do is basically add all of the features that Ryan has added in, where you can tell Bridgie Publish how to interpret parts of your site,
Yeah.
including a custom Twitter element.
Yeah. Yeah. So you can posse something different to Twitter than kind of.
Well, my plan was to basically use the excerpt box.
Yeah. That kind of works. I'm trying to think if anybody else does that and does it in a kind of a canonical way, like Snap.
Well,
Probably has a field, but I don't think anything Snap's doing is that has got a simple box. But there are some themes that use that excerpt thing. Some of them use it as metadata for like, Facebook and Twitter specific tags, and others use it. I've seen some themes. 2016 uses it as like a magazine kicker title, so it's like a subtitle to the main title.
Yeah, well, I figured excerpt was probably the best place to set it, but I could also have custom fields.
Yeah, a custom field may be the best.
We'll see. As I said, it's on my list of things to add there because I'd really like to get away from Snap.
Yeah.
The problem is, in order to get away from Snap, because all of the syndication links from Snap disappear.
Yeah.
If you disable the Snap plugin.
Yeah.
I have to basically write code to migrate that information.
Yeah, cut and paste it.
Well, no, I do it in code.
Yeah.
So basically, once I got the answer, I would move it, update basically the syndication property.
Yeah.
And it doesn't matter if it's doing both because of one other fact. I deduplicate in the event that I'm pulling in from another location.
Yeah, yeah.
I deduplicate it.
Well, that's good.
Anyway, I'm going to wrap up. I have my 10 o'clock in a little while.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Well, sorry we lost Kevin. I'm surprised he stayed with us so long on the train.
I really enjoyed that.
There's some pretty good, it was entertaining during quiet writing hours for sure.
I find that noise very soothing.
Such good reception for so long.
But I find, the noise and vibration of a train very soothing.
Yeah.
Anyway, enjoy the rest of your evening.
Oh, you too. We'll catch you in a bit.
I'll be around without video.
Yeah, I'll probably be around too. I'm going to go grab a bite of dinner and then be back in a half an hour.
Yeah, I'm going to go clean up the remains of dinner that have been sitting here for the last hour and a half.
There you go. All right. Thanks, David. Night.
This concludes our broadcast day.